Good day, folks. Thank you for joining us today. Normally, the format that we have is that we have one of the professionals and then we kind of interview them to find out about their journey here in Canada. But because of the recent sad incident that happened in London, we've kind of taken a different format this time around. Um, the folks who became a part of that accident were actually immigrants, similar to like most of the Canadian journeys that you've heard about on the channel before. They came here for a better life. The lady who passed away um, was doing a PhD. She had done some really cutting edge research, and she was going to um, and she was basically developing a way by which you could refine water or in Toronto. And the gentleman was also a very distinguished member of the community and also contributing member into the Canadian society. And whatever happened was a very sad incident. So we thought we'd have the views of some of the professionals over here who have also had similar journeys like those who passed away, because they can relate to those things in a better way. So that's the focus of our program today, and that's how we proceed. Thank you. One.
Assalamu alaikum. It is something so sad that we are going to discuss today. It's a very, very important and serious issue for all of us as a Muslim and as Canadians, of course. People who lost their life were related to us, to my husband, and it just brings extra grief to us as a family. But there's something that we all need to address and we all need to work on. There's a huge group of professionals here in Canada, and I would like, as an educator, there are just a few things that are coming to my mind, and I'm just thinking that if we work on those grounds, probably things will not, if not now, maybe in future will turn better. Now, to me, racism is a systemic issue. We all know that, and we have to combat that. We don't have to combat that on an individual level. We are not talking about an individual. We are talking about a system that needs to be dismantled. And we are fighting for equal rights for everybody. Now, for this, from where I see, media has to play a very important role. Media has been playing a horrible role all the way through from years and years and years. And because of which certain minorities are being demonized. And people who just blindly follow media, their minds are getting polluted. And what happened in London is a clear-cut result of that. So first and foremost, media needs to play a very important role. Then second responsibility comes on all of us, on every individual. Together, we have to make some noise. We have to let people know. We have to make politicians know. We have to make them understand that there should be policies in place for the safety and security of all minorities. And also there should be policies in place for equal rights. Next thing I would say is on an individual level, please make an effort to meet people, to talk to them, be it social media, be it your neighbors, talk to them, explain them what your religion looks like, what it teaches, and you just lead by example. We are all there. We are all there in the society. Lead by example, and talk to people and let them understand what it is. I'm sorry. Yes, and how what we are, who we are, and clearly what media portrays us to be. We are not those people. And of course, as an educator, I know that the boards here in Ontario are playing a very, very important role. I think they are getting into culturally responsive teaching. The board is working very hard to make everybody understand, to create an inclusive environment in the workplace and for children. and they understand that we are all one, and we understand, we learn how to, I would say, accept differences. So this is all. It's a very diverse place. Canada is a very diverse place. So if someone says that they do not know what minorities are, clearly they're lying. And we just need to reinforce the idea that, okay, what different cultures are and how we can accept them. And, we have to get rid of this negativity.
Saad, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. And people have spoken and people will speak about it, about the incident. As much we condemn is less. Obviously, we all are very sad as the Canadian Muslim community or Canadians in general. But I think what we need to focus on is to look at from a realistic perspective. And I've been saying for the last few days, if the leader of the country, which is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has openly came out and admitted that extremism and Islamophobia and hate exist in Canada, right? And he called this incident act of terrorism, right? But the problem is police haven't been able to charge that person on terrorism ground as of yet. Even Minister Bill Blair yesterday, Minister of Safety, Public Safety, said it's an act of terror and the police is investigating with our RCMP and they would be charging it. So we have to see how it all plays out. It might take 2-3 years. And we have seen in the past, what we need to learn from this is, this won't be the last incident. God forbid, something else might come up. The point I'm trying to make here is we need to do a paradigm shift within our community. And what I mean by this is we expect too much from our mosques, right? Although maybe 5% of Canadian Muslims are practicing people, right? Those who go to mosque. But when these incidents happen, we look at mosque and we want them to lead us through this kind of situation, but they cannot do it. And I think we expect too much from them. The issue is that we only consider donating money to mosque is act of worship or act of good deed. The change we need to do is we need more lobbying efforts. So for example, NCCM, many other institutions are there, but they always lack with money. They always lack with resources. They cannot hire the top talent, because you and I, would we want our kids to go and work for $40,000-$50,000 a year? Probably not. So they don't have any career options up there. So if we as a community, if we don't wake up and put our money, put our resources, put our efforts behind those lobbying activities, if we don't do this, then we would be seeing 4 years ago, you look at the Quebec mosque incident. A year ago, you looked at the IMO incident, and now this London incident. In between the incidents, we haven't heard that security agencies or Canadian government have captured these many people, those who are spreading hate or maybe something being cooked. We haven't seen any of those. But when these incidents come, everybody come together, we all talk, politicians come, it's all point scoring. What we need is people like NCCM or other organizations who can be on top of these things 24/7, 7 days a week, and 12 months around, not like part-time based effort. I think this is where I think we need to help create the opinion and have the community mobilize around it. As far as media goes, as far as the other thing goes, I mean, there will always be pros and cons. But at the same time, if we collaborate instead of compete, what I mean by this is, if you look at other faith-based groups or maybe other communities, whether faith-based or non-faith-based, if they also have these kinds of groups, we should collaborate with them. Because if we all come together and talk about Islamophobia or hate or racism or systematic racism, then I think we all can come together and reach our destination sooner than later.
Okay, my point of view regarding this London incident is from a mother's point of view. For me, I worry. I've started worrying, let's just say, that are my kids safe when they go out with me? Like my appearance, I am hijabi. Is it going to cause them harm? As a parent, I should not be thinking of this, right? So for me, that is something I've never thought about before this incident. I've always felt safe in Canada. I never realized that such hate existed in this country. There are incidents, like there are people violent or hating other people, but hate leading to murder of 4 innocent people is something unimaginable for me happening in Canada. So for me, I believe that we need to work together to address this hate and violence, address Islamophobia, address homophobia, address transphobia. I mean, in the past couple of days, there have been a couple of incidents that have made me think that we need to work together. We need to figure out what is the cause of this hate. Citizens, residents, our government, everybody needs to put their heads together, and we need to figure out how to address this issue. We need to develop a curriculum that needs to address this issue. I mean, hate is existent here in this country, and we need to figure out to address it so such an incident doesn't occur again. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saad Bhai. My name is Muhammad Fahad Akbar, and I recently moved in London like 8 months ago. My comments are kind of my observations. So the first observation that I got is that the Muslim community is actually taken aback, surprised, and most of all, they're afraid. They're scared. So that is something very noticeable. The other thing that I observed is that although the hate does exist, the overwhelming majority of the people, they are actually against it. And we got some random condolences offered by random people out in the parks, out in the on the streets, on shops. So that shows that there's still hope and honesty that's prevailing among the city. In terms of the time limitation, I think what we should do is broadly or principally we should follow the Quranic guideline of wasta'inu bis-sabri was-salah. We should seek help through patience and prayer, and I mean prayer, the individual prayers and the collective prayers. So this really should be our guideline. Along with that, we should be now kind of be more careful in representing or in choosing our representatives, political representatives. I mean to say. So that's the kind of the broader thoughts that I have in my mind. Seek patience, seek help through patience and prayer, and then choose your leaders wisely. It's time to get involved in the politics because the paradigm for the politics are changing. That's what I have to say right now. Thank you, Sajjad.
Assalamu alaikum all. Thank you, Saad Bhai, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on a tragic event that took place. I'll start with a bit on my personal sort of a journey through it. Is obviously most of us might also be sharing the same as well. I started with a feeling of a bit of a shock that turned into grief largely, and then a bit of insecurity, fear, anger. It was a mix of emotions that we and my family went through over the last few days. And some of them is still there, but talking to people, connecting is helping. But I want to talk more about why and what can we do. So I don't want to talk too much about why. We all know racism is here. We've seen it, if not firsthand, we've heard secondhand. We know people, I'm pretty sure we know people who have actually experienced it at some level, small, medium, large, and it's here. It needs to be tackled head on. We need to find ways to join hands, bring Islamophobia at the same level as any other initiative or any other injustice that's happening in the society. Islamophobia should be treated the same way as anti-Semitism, BLM movement, anti-Asian hate. Not too long ago, we've discovered that our Canadian history is deep-rooted in racism. 215 bodies discovered in a school, in a residential school system. It's not going away, and it's not going to happen all by itself. Next thing I want to talk about is like, what can we do? And few other speakers have rightly pointed out, it cannot happen if we are only the engineers or doctors. We need to become activists. We need to actively participate, visibly participate in politics, in media, and educating others about what Islam is. Each one of us carry that torch, whether we like it or not. People, when they're talking to us, they have these preconceived notions that we need to tackle head on. We need to be representative, which means we need to understand what we stand for and how to express ourselves. The other very important thing, in my opinion, is we need to talk to our kids. You'll be surprised what a 6, 7, 8-year-old, how mature they would be in their thought process today, and what influences they are getting and from where. Social media is there. Don't let social media teach your kids. Take that step upon yourselves and talk to them, listen to them, and don't be too protective of them. Let them argue, train them now to be stronger Muslims and stronger Canadians. That's how we will maybe be able to tackle this thing head on. If I want to take it upon myself, I'm already 46. I don't have a lot. I want to make sure that my kids, the next generation, all of us, most of us will be first generation immigrants. We're going to pass this torch over to our next generation. So spend time talking to your kids. Don't be afraid of social media. There is a lot of this in our community. I hear that, oh, my kids are not on social media, alhamdulillah. But it is going to be there. It is going to influence your kids. You better teach them yourself before others take over and do it for you. And use all these media outlets to your advantage. At this point, very important, short-term, join hands, join NCCM, look at your own community, go out for a vigil. Today in Burlington, we had down at the Lake Spencer Smith Park, our city allowed us to have a Jummah prayer and a ceremony to celebrate these lives that we lost. There were tons of Muslims for sure, but there were a lot of other Canadians as well. Not all is lost. We cannot be labeling the entire nation based on the act of a few who do not agree with them or have these thoughts or a different training or background. There is hope. We just need to join hands, make our point very clear, bring it to the same level as any other issue, any other race-related, any other discriminatory behavior, and represent ourselves. Very important. With that, thank you. I'll pass it back to Sadbhai.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Sadbhai, for inviting me to speak about this very, very important issue. Of course, like everybody else in the Muslim community living in Canada, as well as all the Pakistanis living in Canada, we are all very shocked and sad. And we all share the pain that the family is suffering. I would just quickly address this issue through 4 important points that I feel that we should all be talking about. First of all, as everybody else on the panel also said, we need to accept and acknowledge that racism does exist in Canada. And despite being a very multicultural society, denying its existence is condoning racism. So we need to really understand that. And then, of course, we need to take specific actions to address racism because it's a responsibility that we all share. Secondly, I want to talk about engagement. I've always been very, very vocal about this fact that we've done a very good job in developing very strong relationships between our Pakistani community, our Muslim community in Canada, but we haven't been able to engage very well with the non-Muslim Canadians. And I think this is a responsibility that we all share, that we engage with them, we become part of communities, we raise our voices and show to them that we are contributing very positively into the Canadian society. And that, within our community, we've done a very good job, and however the media is portraying us is absolutely wrong and incorrect. So definitely engagement is going to play a very important role in removing those kinds of negativities about Muslims in the society. Third thing, which is very essential, is education and awareness. We definitely need to push for it. The schools and universities need to have a curriculum where they can focus on addressing Islamophobia or hate against any other religion as well. I mean, there is a need to kind of educate our younger generations and to let them know that this is not done. You cannot hate your peers or the members of the society just on the basis of their beliefs and their religion. And there needs to be some kind of curriculum change with respect to that. As a policy analyst, I personally feel that policy changes are definitely very essential in this particular situation. We can't wait for any other incident like that to happen and for the ministers and the politicians to just come forward and condemn this event. We need to kind of take some steps, constructive steps to actually bring some kind of policy change on provincial or federal level. As a society, as a community, as Muslims, Pakistanis, we need to kind of, we have a lot of representatives who are there in the House of Commons. We need to encourage them, or we have to, you know, have some kind of petition going around or something like that, where we can actually bring this motion forward. So the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion can actually, you know, some attention needs to be put on this particular issue as well, and that the government should be able to chart a path forward for ending violence against Muslims in Canada. And the fifth and the last thing is something that I personally feel is very essential, which is we need to stop labeling terrorists. We need to stop saying that this is a Christian terrorist or a Muslim terrorist, because this is the very reason why we're experiencing Islamophobia today. In the media, that's basically how any terrorist who has done any kind of criminal activity or an act of terrorism or violence has been labeled as a Muslim, and that's why Islamophobia exists in the world today. And I will just mention a very small example. When this incident happened here, one of my Christian friends spoke about it, and she said, I believe that this person is a Christian because there's a lot of intolerance in amongst us Catholics. And I just told her that this is not fair to label a terrorist as based on whatever faith he belongs to. And the same thing needs to happen with Muslims as well. We need to kind of raise our voices against being labeled as a terrorist, you know, as a religion that kind of promotes terrorism. Because if there's any one person who has committed a crime, does not mean that the entire society is like that. And I think that through all of these steps, I think we should be able to make some kind of positive changes in ending violence against Muslims in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Saad, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very important topic. First of all, I'd like to express my deepest condolences to the family of the deceased, the 4 beautiful souls that had to give up their life because somebody decided that it's time for them. And this hate-motivated, unspeakable act of terror is something that we can only counter through a strategic approach as a community. I cannot claim to speak on behalf of the friends and family of the 4 people who had to lay their lives, but generally as community, I think once we get past the stage of grief and sorrow, we have to collectively come up with a strategy and decide how to respond to this menace of hate that has been growing in Canada for far too long. And I would propose a few things. First of all, as one of the earlier speakers said, there has to be a conscious effort to study Islamophobia in Canada, starting with an acceptance of the fact that this menace actually exists in the society. And there are numbers to prove that. There's been a ton of research. We are past the stage where we can deny Islamophobia. I mean, what more can happen that, you know, 4 members of a family would be mowed down in public, in front of people? What more do we need to prove that Islamophobia is real and it has been more palpable than ever before in Canada? I have tons of data to prove that. There's been a lot of studies. I wouldn't go into the details of that, but I would just say that the first step is to accept on part of the community, both Muslim, non-Muslim, generally as Canadians, and especially by the mainstream media and by our politicians, that this is an actual problem. Second of all, I think it's time that we no longer can afford to be the silent majority. We have to speak up. We have to be vocal about this issue. We cannot brush it under the rug saying that, it doesn't affect us or our immediate family. And Saad, I would just like to tell you an example, my personal anecdote that happened only a few weeks ago, and that is something I'm speaking in public for the first time about. There was an incident in my neighborhood recently, which was hate motivated, and it spiraled into harassment of my family and my 12-year-old daughter, to the extent that I had to call police on the perpetrator. But the silver lining is that the whole neighborhood stood for us. They came over, spoke with us, they demonstrated their support. They told us what is it that we can do legally, and they stood with us throughout the episode. And we were overwhelmed by all the support that we received. 24 people wrote to the mayor of the city. They had numerous calls with the councillors to make sure that whoever committed this act of hate is brought to task. So that's a glimmer of hope. We see that there are allies in the non-Muslim communities, which is something that you could see from the number of people in the London vigil that happened a couple of days ago. We have to make sure that those allies are on our side. And the way we can do that is by integrating with them, interacting with them, and talking to our neighbors. There's no doubt in my mind that the reason these heinous, violent acts of terror occur is because the perpetrators have never been in contact with people outside of their own community. They have no semblance of any interaction or dialogue with people who belong to different ethnicities, different races, different religious or faith backgrounds. And it is in that void that social media and many mainstream media outlets as well, they fan hate. And when you don't have any understanding of who your neighbors are, that gives a chance to people who want to create Islamophobia and hate in the society to influence these susceptible minds. And that is apparently what happened in this particular case as well. And the only way we can counteract is to establish deep roots of love and compassion with our neighbors, and tell them who we are. And this is part of our faith. We have to come across as passionate about kindness, compassion, and love, not because that is the need of the hour, but that's who we are as Muslims. Thirdly, I would like to say that we have to make sure that we tell our kids what is unfolding right in front of our eyes. We cannot any longer, just say that, this is an episode which will pass. There is something that will probably linger on for a long time. And the only way we can address this is by educating and by creating awareness in our next generation as to what is the way to fight this menace of hate. And as I said, the hate cannot be fought with hate. There has to be love and compassion. And lastly, I would say that we have to reach out to the representatives in our communities, political representatives, faith leaders, community leaders, to make sure that our voice is heard. I know that there is a huge majority of people who decide to think that these acts are wrong, should not occur, but they do not go beyond anything other than that. It is time that we pick up the phone, we write letters and emails to people who are policymakers, who would move the needle on things as discrimination, prejudice, hate, which eventually give rise to such acts of violence. So speak up, talk to your neighbors, talk to your representatives in the community, and be heard. And again, make sure you participate in the events that are happening to show solidarity with the family, attend vigils, and speak up, be heard, and come across as what you are supposed to be as true Muslims. Thank you.
So I'm here to today give my thoughts on the recent event that has happened in London, which is extremely sad and everybody knows across the board. I just want to mention that in Canada, the second largest massacre in Canadian history was in 1989 on the 6th of December, when Mark Levine entered a engineering school and shot several women, sleuth of women. And again, that was extremely because of hatred. So hate crime, regardless what religion, color, background, where you're coming from, what your level is, it is unacceptable across the whole of this country or any other country it should be. We wanted to come into a safe environment, and that's why we brought our families to live in a place where we are accepted, live with dignity and safety. So currently speaking, what has happened, I do believe that it should be taken as a larger movement, not for one community as what has happened as our community, but in fact collaborate with and join hands with several communities, because every community in some way or another does face hate, and hate crimes do occur. And unfortunately speaking, there has been a gap. There is a systemic barrier. And as this happened, I mentioned in 1989, the movement was so strong because of violence against women that it became global. And not only to that, it went in the school curriculums, not women showing only to be the victim, but I myself has experienced that we used to have men coming speaking to young boys so that they would know how to really address hate and not have it. If they're angry, how to deal with anger management, so on and so forth. In the same way, any faith or religion, if you don't know your neighbors, do interact, intermingle. Everything is shown by love and compassion, and across the board, being able to show it through kindness. The actions are very important. Words they do have an impact, but not as much, because you're only saying it, you're not further moving it forward. So I would just like to end this by saying that being loving and kind is the way that we can deal with many, many issues. We are all hurting right now, and it's a very sad act that has happened, no doubt. Everybody is on the same page about that. I want to just end by saying that there is no envy, jealousy, or hatred between the different colors of a rainbow, as this is well quoted. And there should be no fear either, because each one exists to make the other's love more beautiful. Together, like a rainbow, are we able to succeed? There is a movement needed. We need to participate. We need to take it forward in a manner with a strategy. And in fact, it should go global, not across. I mean, hate across the globe is something that's wrong. So like violence against women and so many other movements, yes, we should embark on it, get to the government about it. I feel there have been huge gaps. They have not jumped on it earlier. And now is again a time that this has happened. We should not just, move forward and just think it was something in the past. One has to really persist with making proper solutions and getting some outcomes out of what has happened. So the lives were really not lost in vain. It's very hurtful. Thank you.
Saad Rahman, thank you for letting me speak. I think most of the things that need to be said or needed to be said have already been said, but I might be being presumptuous, but I think I'm the longest resident of Canada that's in this forum right now. I came here in 1974. Basically, what I felt was that as a kid, I used to see these types of attitudes quite regularly, but because we had a lot less people from Pakistan, a lot less Muslims here, the Islamophobes didn't feel as intimidated. But one thing, there's two things I'll just mention. Number one, I agree, civic engagement is important, but what I also think is that we should also join with other communities who suffer the same way. Homophobes, anti-vaxxers, anti-Semites, people who don't like Black people, they're pretty much all the same. They overlap. So we should try to help all sorts of communities and support each other, even if somebody lifestyle might not be agreeing with us, maybe in our personal religious beliefs, right? The other thing I'd say is that I do, as an educator, try to help educate people, especially as a technologist or a scientist, that, if you want to slam Islam, I ask my students, just remember, the scientific method comes from a Muslim. and virtually the entire world that we have right now is built based on the scientific method. So educating people on the fact that, the first university, there's a lot of positive contributions, the first major hospital, in a positive light, because one of the problems that we have in this country is, in general, when they talk about Islam, they being the media and the general public, it's usually in a negative light. Like today, I'm listening to talk radio, and they're doing mental gymnastics, trying to logically show how this guy just snapped. And it's almost like a ridiculous trope when they say mental health issues. Of course, it's mental health issues. Every act of terrorism or violence means that person is mentally and spiritually not well. That's ridiculous to not acknowledge that we do have problems that we need to work on. And that's what I'm hoping that people do. And then I believe most Canadians, especially the ones that I grew up with, that I've known for almost 50 years, 40 odd years now, they are on our side. They will be with us, but we have to deal with it in a positive way and work with people. On the other hand, I cannot tell you when I die, or I know I'm going to die, it's going to be days like last Sunday that I will not miss. So much sadness. Thank you, Sajjad.
Thanks, Saad, for the opportunity today. For me, this incident was really an eye-opener there. I just went from a news item for about a Muslim family being run over to go become a Pakistani family, become a family which is very close to in configuration to my own family in age, everything. And then it went from that to finding out that I have personal connection with the family, not just here, from back home as well. So that I went through different emotions over the last few days on that. A really sad event. Obviously, there is anger, there is frustration about why it happened. But I guess the point I was going to make here is that we need to move on and look at what needs to be done here. Why would this happen, so that we can stop something like this happen again. We are in the same situation with our kids growing up here. We moved from back home to Canada, looking to isolate ourselves from whatever is going on in the world. And this kind of proves that you cannot really isolate yourself to the world, right? So we owe our answers to ourselves for the questions raised here regarding the part of reason of coming here, having kids here, looking for kids' future here, our own future here, and everything. So there are some tough questions to be asked and will be asked by us, ourselves, our family, our kids will be asking. So it's a point in time where we need to be ready with our responses as well, right? What I think, and I've been in Canada for a long time, right? I went through many things there, but I don't feel qualified myself to give suggestions or anything to anybody there, because I feel that I can blame myself as well, partially here, since I've not been vigilant, I've not been active, I've not been taking notes or making opinions known to people. That's my fault. And what I think is, like, when I look at myself, what I can do differently, same thing people can do themselves as well. For example, when my kid and my daughter and my wife was out in the market and a lady challenged them on their dressing, I could have taken it more seriously and pursued it through legal sources as well. I could have made it known through to my MPs, MNAs here, MPPs, and same thing here, right? Like we could have attended vigils before. We could have spoken up when there were actions going against Muslims, hate crimes against Muslims. We could have done more when Quebec massacre happened or other things happened. There have been near misses as well, right? And my belief is that the political involvement from our society is still lacking in terms of providing funding, providing group opinions to the politicians here. And that's what one of the items was I was trying to make is to bring my kids here in this vigil here, first time for me, at least to get them to know what's going around in the society and what is expectations from us. And likewise, I extend that hopefully to be more active politically and start noticing things which I may have been past for, because it only happens when you have a personal loss, or you could have seen that, oh, it could have been me, or it could have been my family, right? I'm very embarrassed that it has come to that point, and we have not done much to see that anybody else, other Muslims or anybody else in the community is ours as well. But what I see here is that the good thing about Canada again is that we don't consider ourselves as minority. This attack, the terror attack, is not on our minority community or anything. We are peace-loving citizens here. We are part of this community fabric. We're part of the good stories about Canada. So we are the majority here. We are part of the bigger movement of people here who want to live peacefully, don't want to hate each other. So that's what we have to show, that this attack is not on the minority. This attack is actually on the majority, and majority will take care of that. And we'll need to find that minority thinking who believes in hate, who believes in terror, spreading terror. And we need to go after and push our representatives to make legislations and policies which can go after where these terror factories are in Canada. And it's not about this person, it's where he got the motivation, it's where he got the hate, and something where he was willing to basically put his life on the path, on a criminal path, just because of somebody would have given him a lesson there. That's all I have to say. I think it's just we need to respect ourselves here, rather than providing suggestions to community there. It starts with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody who participated and gave their thoughts today on this rather sad incident. Hopefully, we won't have to go through this again in the future, and hopefully, we will see things progressing in a positive manner. Thank you so much, all, for being out here. Thank you.